What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. 2 more weeks of daily fantasy golf for you before the December break. So we got 2 more weeks to make it count. Relatively weak field. That's putting it nicely, but a weak field event. Another one this week in Bermuda before what should be a pretty strong field to close out the fall swing next week at the RSM Classic. But everybody dealing with the same player pool, so there's still money to be won, whether it's a strong field or not. It'll just be a little bit of a struggle to get through the golfers that we have this week. But before we dig into that, introduce the hosts here. You got myself, Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84. As usual, Mr. Notorious Derek Farnsworth alongside. Noto, what's up?
Yeah, what's going on? Fun event last week. I wish we had some shot tracker for it, but yeah, ended up being a fun Sunday. Ben Griffin with his 3rd win of the year. This is somebody that I thought Eric Cole was on a similar level to, like a year and a half ago. Now he's like turned into a superstar. So be interesting to see if he is able to translate that into some success at the majors. But yeah, I mean, we had so much right on the show last week. Unfortunately, I had too many missed cuts to go along with all my, win and top 10 finishes.
Yeah, and I went underweight on Griffin simply from an ownership angle. That did not work, but our boy Carson Young came back with a better week. I know we talked about Schmidt on the show. Speaking of Cole, he had a top 10 finish, and I was rooting for him, but after what has been a relatively terrible year, it was really nice to see Nick Dunlap up there for a couple of days. He had really been fighting it off the tee basically all season with some really ugly numbers. He was the leader, I believe, after the first round and was in second place after Friday. Had a bad round on Saturday, which kind of put him out of the mix a little bit, but still finished top 10. So kudos to him. Matt Kuchar, as we talked about last week, surprising that he continues to play well on that course, but he does. So he was up there in the top 15 as well. Rosenmuller was my punt of the week. He finished top 20. So it was a pretty good week overall for a lot of the guys that we recommended on the show, but similarly didn't have a lineup that pulled all the right things together. There were some kind of surprises inside the top 20 as well, which is to be expected with these types of events. We'll surely see that again this week. Most of the bigger names did make the cut last week, but I know some guys that Mark Hubbard had some ownership, was just one stroke off. I played a little Johnny Kiefer as a kind of risk-reward GPP play. He missed by a stroke. So there was, a few landmines out there, but interesting tournament. Just hard to get into it too much on Thursday and Friday without that shot-by-shot data, and still amazes me that we can't have that in 2025, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Then we're going to have to deal with it again this week, which is never fun. But yeah, Patrick Fishburne and...
Yeah, Fishburne was another one, yeah.
Kevin Roy were the two that messed my main lineup up. And then Kevin Yu was pretty popular too. Ended up missing the cut. But yeah, the Nick Dunlap thing, I actually saw somebody tweet about it, about his awful off the tee metrics. And he's been awesome everywhere else except off the tee. So they bet him at like 100-1, and I almost tailed him. Glad I didn't, because that would have been a little painful after that start. But yeah, good to see him. So anytime you get those wide fairways, maybe Nick Dunlap needs to be in play. Just like anytime the around the green stuff doesn't matter, fire up Carson Young.
That's right. Yeah, and we didn't have the shot link data from last week, so we can't truly tell what Dunlap's splits were as far as strokes gained go. But will be interesting to see if he can parlay that into to some more success going forward. He is not in the field this week. This does not feel like it would be his type of course that they're playing on this week. If he's struggling off the tee, very narrow course, different type of course this week for sure. So, but anyways, it was nice to see him up there. I've always kind of been a fan, but he had really fallen off over the course of the past 6 months. So nice to see him back in the mix. JJ Spawn, another one of the top end guys last week that just kind of fought his way to a top 15. Was 7 shots back of the lead at the end of the week. But any other takeaways from that event other than what we've mentioned so far?
I was just going to look up Ben Griffin's back 9. I kind of stopped paying attention after the front 9.
Yeah, I was mad because I called a 30 under winning score on the show, and he came 1 short. But I believe he did birdie the last hole, so it's not like he
He went 7 under on his last 11 holes. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that'll do pretty well when you're chasing a win on Sunday afternoon for sure. And part of the benefit of being there and getting multiple wins in a year, you learn how to play with that pressure, and I'm sure it helps him each time he gets in that spot. Not like Ramey and Malamaki and Bone and some of those guys that were chasing him don't have quite that level of success at the PGA Tour level under their belt. So did get a note a couple minutes ago from producer Steve that we are having just a little bit of an issue with the YouTube stream. So for those of you that weren't able to tune into that right away, you can always go back and watch it hopefully after the show if you want to catch the first few minutes. Twitch and X seem to be working fine. So any of you that are watching from there, you should not have an issue, but we'll have Steve post in our little internal group and all clear when we're live everywhere. And I'll make sure to pass that along to anybody that might be watching it on YouTube. So, all right, let's go ahead and move to the new week. We've got, again, 2 weeks to go before the winter break. Bermuda this week, Georgia next week. This is a pretty common week for most of the guys to take off. The Bermuda Championship has, I don't have the field strength data in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet this is in the bottom 3 or 4 for the year as a whole. If we look at the event has been played 6 times, your winners: Rafael Campos last year, Villegas the year before, Seamus Power, Lucas Herbert, Brian Gay, and Brendan Todd. So not exactly a murderer's row, if you will, of winners at this event. Interesting mix of some shorter hitters and some longer hitters, but you look at some of the runners up: Harry Higgs, Danny Lee, Andrew Novak. I mean, it's kind of a Wild West type of tournament where you really can't predict who's going to show up, who's going to win. And it's just it's an interesting week. So probably another week where we can expect some unpredictability. Port Royal will be the host course for the 7th time. Main defense of this course is wind. And if there is no wind, it is really scoreable. But the early forecasts, I believe, have pretty hefty winds in the mix. So I think it's going to play as more of a challenge this year. What do we know about the courses?
Yeah, so good guess by you. Only the Puerto Rico Open had a worse field last year, and it looks like it's going to be that again this year. As far as, the wind, it looks like it's going to be very windy. Today is wild, 40 mile per hour sustained and 50 mile per hour gusts with some rain mixed in. So glad they weren't playing on Tuesday. But every other day expected during the event is going to be 20 plus mile per hour winds. Saturday is going to be 30 plus mile per hour winds, 40 mile per hour gusts with some rain as well. So I do think that's going to change the way the course is played. It's been all over the map in terms of difficulty. When the wind has been down, we've seen the winning score, deep in the 20s. And it's been one of the easier courses. And when the wind's up, the winning score is like 15 under par. It tends to be pretty tough. So I'm thinking we see something around 15 under par again. The fairways are tough to hit. It is a very short course. It's less than 6,900 yards, and it's a par 71. So par adjusted, it's one of the shortest courses on the PGA Tour. Not a lot of water in play, even though it is, right on the island. It's only in play on 4 of the holes. The greens are big, but they're difficult to hit. And just a lot of guys hitting less than driver off the tee. So I'm kind of looking at approach, bogey avoidance around the green, strokes gained on coastal courses, strokes gained on less than driver courses. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good synopsis. I did kind of factor in ball flight a little bit, giving a slight nod to the golfers with the lower apex,
so
which I think is interesting if the wind is going to be up, most of the days. I think that's a possible angle you could look at. That metric is available over at Betsperts Golf if you're interested. On the rabbit hole tool, they got apex height in there. So nothing that is, by all means must, you got to use this, right? We've had talks about Rory at some majors, the Open when it's windy, and it's not the be all end all, but something you can factor into your analysis this week if you like. And yeah, it is windy and rainy there today, but it's still about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm not going to feel too bad for the people down in Bermuda, as it feels like it woke up this morning and it felt like about 15 here in the Midwest. So it's gone from like 70 to 15 in the matter of a week. And it's supposed to be like 68 again by the weekend. So that's a nice recipe for the whole family to get sick. I'm sure that will be happening. So if I'm sniffling and sneezing next week on the show, that's why. This time of year with the weather changes, I mean, if you're in a cold weather climate, cold weather winter anyways, I hate this time of year. It gets me grumpy because it gets cold and it gets dark at like 4:45, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of it getting dark at 4:45.
Yeah, nobody is. It does feel like you can get the kids to bed a little earlier, though. That's kind of been nice. Like in the summer, they fight it because they don't want to go to bed when it's light outside. But yeah, like 8:15, boys are in bed, lights out. It's been kind of nice in that aspect. But other than that, yeah, I hate the getting dark early.
They get tricked by the time change. It doesn't work anymore when the oldest gets close to 16. He just will go to bed when he wants to. But that's okay. He's independent enough that I don't have to wait for him. So I can still go to bed. And as you get older, after that time change and then getting dark at 4:45, it starts to feel pretty late there after 9 o'clock. So anyway, old man yells at cloud. I get it. But it is going to be pretty breezy down there in Bermuda this week. So I would expect that we won't see quite as good a scoring as what we have seen in previous, at least the last couple editions of this tournament. All right, let's dig in to the player pool. I have stalled long enough. Did that partially because it's not going to be super fun to talk about this field. No offense to anybody that's playing, but again, went through that winners list, and don't get me wrong, it's a huge career-changing experience if a guy who's never won, wins this type of event. And a lot of these guys that are on the bubble of where they're at for their FedEx Cup points. These last couple events really matter. So I'm not trying to say these events don't matter, just not quite as exciting from a, viewers looking to tune in type of perspective, especially now that golf's competing with football and basketball and hockey and all the major sports kind of going on right now. But Rico Hoey, it seems like we've seen him every week this fall. He's at the top of the pricing mix this week, continues to play pretty solid golf. We've talked about the putter change with him quite often. Kevin Yu, who Noto mentioned at the top of the show, was kind of a surprising missed cut last week. He's back in the field this week and is still the second most expensive golfer. Olison's been playing well this fall, and those are our only three golfers above 10K on DraftKings, and then there's nobody else down until we get to 9,700. So there's not even anybody at 99 or 98. It does seem like you can fit one of these top end guys in if you want. I mean, even if you're playing Hoey, you still have almost 8,000 per player for the rest of your roster positions. So do we like any of these top three? I mean, if we think there's a clear top guy here, it should be pretty easy to play them.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say you have to have one, but the pricing is pretty soft. So I'm probably going to start in the 10K range. I do think there are some good options up here. I don't know how to get away from Rico Hoey at this point. I know the short game isn't, elite, but the putter's been a little bit better since switching to the long putter. The around the greens, field average, nothing too bad. But he's the best ball striker in the field. I do think that's going to help in the windy conditions. T17 here last year. So he's my favorite. Kevin Yu, take the driver out of his hands, give him a bunch of wind. That scares me a little bit. So I probably won't be on Kevin Yu. And then Olison, I mean, he's been great. 4 straight top 15s. Never played this event. And I will note that course history here is pretty sticky. There's a lot of guys with great course history. Yeah. So I think that docks him just a little bit, but I'd rank him Hoey, Olison, and then you.
Yeah, Hoey definitely my favorite of this group. I echo your same concerns about you and the fact that the price is now, he's the second most expensive guy, despite maybe not being in his best form. Olison never having played here and being projected for pretty high ownership. At least I'm going to refresh that to get what our latest numbers are on projected ownership. Let's take a peek here. So right now we've got Hoey at 29, you at 19, and Olison at 26 ownership. So I'd probably rank him in the same order, but Hoey definitely the golfer I would prioritize in here, though I don't mind just starting in the 9s. If you want to do that, I don't think there's a significant difference. Going down to the next couple guys, we've talked about Echeverria quite a bit. He was one of my favorites last week. I believe he finished T14. Good experience on coastal type of courses. Been playing pretty consistent golf. I think he'll be all right in the wind. Cootie's another guy that's been coming on now that he's got his status secure. Had a great year on the Korn Ferry Tour, and let's be realistic, this is basically a Korn Ferry Tour type of field. So you've got Cootie in here. Patrick Rogers, Matty Schmid, both coming off of really good weeks last week. Brennan coming off that win a couple weeks ago. We've got 3 others in the 9K range as well. Jesper Svensson, I can't figure out why he's $9,200, but he's there. Matt Wallace and Vince Whaley rounding out your 9K options. I'll give you first crack here. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so after my latest run of my model where I bumped up around the green and bogey avoidance, Vince Whaley's number 1 in the model. 9K, he's had 3 top 10s here in a row, coming off some pretty good starts. He had a 3rd place finish not too long ago. I think he's made 11 straight cuts on the PGA Tour.
So I saw you mention that. You had mentioned it in your survey or somewhere. I read that. And so I was trying to figure out either what you missed or what I was missing, and I haven't figured it out yet. So we're going to hash it out here. I believe, based on the logs that I looked at, and if I search for active made cut streak on the PGA Tour, it shows him at 17, which I think is correct.
Even better. I thought I was the wrong way.
I think it's 17. And that would put him 4th on tour behind only Xander Schauffele, Scotty Scheffler, and Corey Connors, which is pretty good company. So the PGA Tour stats have him at 17. So I'm not sure if there's or your data might have a non-tour event in there, or maybe I'm still missing something, but I think it's 17.
Yeah, I think the site that I was on is missing a few events if I'm looking at the official world golf rankings. Yeah. So
well,
cool.
Anyway, he's been the quietest stretch of 17 consecutive made cuts. I would never have guessed that.
Yep. Famous last words. Sorry, Vince, you're probably heading home early this week.
But anyway, I wasn't trying to. I like him a lot. It's so you look at he's made 17 cuts in a row. You're saying he's coming out first in your model, and he's played here 3 of the last 4 years, and he's finished top 10 every time. And you mentioned that course history being kind of sticky. I mean, I think he's a great option this week.
Yep, my favorite by far. Outside of that, kind of just like guys in tournaments. Matty Schmid's been playing good. Nico Echeverria, he never projects that well for me, but I think he makes some sense on this course. Patrick Rogers has been really good here, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He's more of a really open, wide, long course specialist, but he's got 3 straight top 10s here as well. So I don't mind those guys in tournaments, but I'm probably going to start my main lineup with Hoey and Whaley and then kind of dip down a little bit.
Yeah, Echeverria and Whaley are my 2 favorites in here, but I think with the $700 savings, plus we have him projected for lower ownership, and with that course history, Whaley becomes my favorite on a points per dollar basis. We'll probably sprinkle Cootie and maybe Rogers into my GPP lineups just because that putting some value on that course history with Rogers, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He did play well last week. He tends to be a little bit streaky. So those 4, Whaley, Echeverria, Cootie, and Rogers, probably in that order. How I'll play them, I think I'll have those 4 in my player pool. We'll probably skip the others, even though Schmid and Brennan have had some good results over the past few weeks. Matt Wallace maybe becomes kind of a leftover in here. I can't figure out why Svensson is 9,200. He's one of the easy scratches for me. It was terrible last week too, so I'm out on him. Anything else above 9K for you?
I think that's it. Don't mind Matt Wallace. The last 4 winners here have all been international players. So the guys that probably just because they're more used to playing all over the world, more used to playing in the wind. So I don't mind Matt Wallace, but yeah, he's never played this event. All
right, let's go ahead and move on down to the 8K range here. We've got, again, quite a few options in this tier, led off by Chad Ramey, who's coming off a tie for the runner-up finish last week at 8.9K. Sam Stevens, Alex Smalley, Matt Kuchar, a lot of the guys that have been playing kind of throughout the fall swing. Again, Kuchar continues to play well. Last week was his third straight top 20 finish. Mark Hubbard coming off a miscut last week, but just by a stroke. The guy that I think is interesting, I almost never talk up Eric Cole. You mentioned at the beginning of the show, Cole being on kind of a similar track to what Ben Griffin has become, and Cole kind of faded quite a bit for much of the year. But since the fall swing has started, he hasn't missed a cut. He's got 2 top 10s, including one last week. And Cole's biggest weakness, we've talked about this several times on the show, Cole's biggest weakness is off the tee. This course is tight, takes the driver out of your hands, basically becomes a second, third shot golf course, which would be much more of a fit to Eric Cole's game. And he played well on a wide open course last week. So I'm usually not the Eric Cole truther, but I think this is a great spot for him at 8.4K. He's probably my favorite play in the 8Ks. Otherwise, I think this range is relatively pedestrian. I mean, we've talked a lot of these fall swing events. You like the 9s quite a bit. You like the 7s quite a bit. The 8s kind of become forgetful for some reason. So I do like Cole. I'd have to be swayed on a lot of the other options in here, but what's your take?
I was going to say Eric Cole's been Nick Dunlap bad off the tee over the last few months, but if he can club down and just find some fairways, you got to like his chances this week. Very good on approach, very good around the green, great putter. So I'm with you. I like Eric Cole. Kuchar's probably my favorite, just a guy that playing great. The approach game's good. The short game's always been good. And you get him on coastal courses. He's really good. I think he's won the RBC Heritage a few times, so which is right on the water too. So I like Kuchar. And you mentioned the apex height angle. He's like one of the lowest low ball hitters on tour as well, which I kind of like. And then Victor Perez at 8,100 rates out really well for me. For whatever reason, my model just loves him every week. He was T21 last week, which was fine. Good iron player, good putter. He's not good around the green, which does worry me a little bit, but also take my chances there. And then that's pretty much it for the 8s, but I do think the 8s are better than they have been in recent weeks.
Yeah, I can get behind Perez again as well. It would probably be my second guy in this range after Cole. Might throw somebody like Stevens or Kuchar in the GPP mix as another kind of filler for my player pool, but haven't really made any definite decisions on that. And then we can start moving down into the 7s. I brought up Kanaya last week. He really faded on the weekend, did make the cut, but faded on the weekend. For what it's worth, he does have the lowest ball flight on the entire tour in Japan, and the lowest ball flight of anybody in the field. So if you're playing that, hit the stingers in the wind, Kanaya would fit that mold. So I don't like him quite as much as I did last week, but I think he's okay at 7.9K. Again, probably lands in my player pool, but nobody I would he wouldn't be a guy that I would consider an absolute must. Around the green, I am placing a little emphasis on this week because I think there's going to be more scrambling involved. So that means it's not a Carson Young week, but we do have quite a few names in between 7.5 and 7.9K. We'll see if Noda wants to go back to Kevin Roy again. We've got Bo Hostler, Doug Gim in here, but a range that you're probably going to have to find one or two guys to put in your player pool. Just seems like there's a lot of hit or miss guys in here. So anybody standing out to you?
Yeah, I'll probably go back to Kevin Roy, one of the better bogey avoiders in the field. If you want to play the ball striking angle in the wind, you have Doug Gim down here, he's actually a pretty good scrambler. He's just a really bad putter. So I liked his tee to green game on a course like this, although he's missed 3 straight cuts here. So maybe that'll help keep the ownership down. My favorite large field play is probably going to be Sam Ryder. Number 1 in the field in strokes gained on less than driver courses over the last 2 years, which I thought was interesting. He also finished 5th here last year. Good putter, and he can get red hot with the iron. So if he's hitting fairways, I like his chances. And then Fishburne rates out well for me, but I just keep getting him wrong. He's missing the cut by 1 or 2 every week, and I can't do it anymore. So going to be off of Fishburne. So if you haven't been playing him, now's probably the time to hop on.
if I just sort this field by strokes gained at this event over the last 5 years, Mark Hubbard is 6th, Alex Smalley is 5th, Vince Whaley is 4th, Patrick Rogers is 3rd. The other 3 from the top 7, so that would be 1st, 2nd, and 7th in course history, all have gained more than 20 strokes over field average at this event over the last 5 years. They're all in the 7Ks. I just heard you mention Seamus Power when I started. He is one of the 3. He is 2nd overall, so there is one better than him. Do you know either of the other 2? Any guesses?
I'm guessing it's the guy I had to manually bump up in my model, and that's Justin Lower.
So he's the number 1 guy. And then Grayson Sigg is the other. So if you're playing the course history angle this week, Lower 5th, 20th, 8th, and 17th the last 4 years here. Power 23rd, 1st, 12th, and 37th with 1 year that he didn't play. And then Sigg with 9th, 11th, 22nd. So again, if you're playing that course history angle, I do like Lower a good bit. Because of, I mean, if he gets super steamed up because of the course history, I guess it makes me a little bit nervous. He had a pretty bad summer, but he did start the fall with a 3rd place in Utah, had a 31st place last week as well. He needs points for his kind of FedEx Cup positioning, so clearly likes this course. So I like Lower. If I had to pick between among those course history guys, Lower would be the guy that I'm looking at in GPPs. He's there at 7,300. Power's at 76. Sigg is at 74. So if you're looking at the course history angle, there's quite a few guys in this 7K range. As we dip down to the bottom part of it, not a whole lot that's going to stand out the rest of the field. I've mentioned that Taylor Montgomery's been popping in projections, but has now missed 2 cuts in a row. So he's probably going to dip down a little bit. But as we get to the lower part of the 7K range, I'm fine with going back to Rosenmueller again. He had a T17 last week, 22 birdies. All 4 of his rounds were under 70. His tee to green metrics look really good, especially compared to a lot of the others in this 7K range. So Rosenmueller, Justin Lower would be a couple of guys I like in the lower part of this 7K range. Who do you like?
Yeah, I like Lower too, but you really just have to, close your eyes because he's below the league or the field average in all 4 of the strokes gained categories over the last 12 months. So he's not doing anything well, but he's got the course history and he's got a couple of decent finishes in the fall. So
not doing anything well, but he does it well here.
I don't understand. He does not project well for me. That's why I had to manually bump him up. But I will be playing him. I do like Grayson Sigg. So he gained 8 strokes on approach at the Pro Court, and then he gained 8 strokes again on approach at the Bank of Utah Championship. So the irons have been really good recently, and then you have the course history there too at 7,400. I love Andrew Putnam, a guy that does not hit it far off the tee. He's just been bleeding strokes, off the tee lately, kind of similar to Eric Cole, Nick Dunlap, but he's been awesome on approach. Historically, he's been, great short game as well. So I think it's a great course fit for Putnam. I like him at 7,100. I like the Rosenmueller call. That's probably going to do it for me in the 7s.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else here either that is sticking out for me. I'll probably play a little bit of Putnam as well at that salary. But that's probably it for the 7s for me. Also, as we dip down in the 6s, you're getting a lot of guys that either you don't know, or if you do know, they're in absolutely terrible form. Somebody like Nick Hardy, who was maybe a thing like last year at this time, has missed his last 4 cuts and hasn't really been particularly close in most of them. David Lipsky is maybe the one guy who has turned it around a little bit. So I think he's going to get at least a little bit of ownership at 6.9K. I mentioned Harry Higgs has a runner-up finish here in his career a few years back, but look, there's not just some obvious gotta have it type of guy. Tyler Duncan's made some cuts on the Korn Ferry Tour, but there's you're going to have to stomach a little bit of risk reward if you're going down deep into the 6s this week. Anybody standing out to you or in the model?
Yeah, so you quizzed me on the course history. I'm going to quiz you on apex height. There's 2 other guys.
Man, I was looking at this earlier, and now I'm not going to remember though.
two guys in the sixes that are just above Kanaya in terms of apex height. Top of the 6K range.
I was going to say they'd have to be at least somewhat rosterable. And I would say they probably aren't the longest guys if they have, like, it would be shocking if it was a super long hitter. But it's got to be somebody that I think would at least be semi-rosterable. How about, none of these guys seem semi-rosterable, though. How about Snedeker?
Oh, I don't know where he's at. He might not even have enough rounds.
He might not have enough data. I would imagine he would be close.
Adam Svensson, T21 last week.
I wouldn't have guessed him.
And Mateo Manacero,
okay,
who he projects well for me.
Would have taken me several guesses to get there, so I'm glad we didn't play that game too long.
But yeah, I like Lipsky, and he's really the only guy in the sixes that I would consider rostering in small field, single entry stuff.
Yeah, and it's really not super necessary to go like even if you're starting, like Noto mentioned, starting with like Hoey and Whaley, you still have 7650 on average. So even if you play one of these guys, okay, I throw Lipsky in there, you're all almost up to 8K on average for the rest of your golfers. So it's not like it's a week where you're trying to get up to Scheffler or some of these 11, 12, 13K type of price tags that we've been seeing. So Lipsky is going to grade out as the best for me as well. And then probably not doing much with the rest of this range. So, all right, with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a wrap for this week's show. So again, we have one more event before the winter break, which is the RSM Classic. So that's in Georgia, kind of at a home base for a lot of these PGA Tour guys. So we will see a stronger field for this event next week. I was trying to look up a committed player list, but was having trouble finding it. So now we've got quite a few winners from this year in the field, but yeah, they're not the greatest names. So somewhat weak, but not as weak as what we see this week. All right, Noto, anything else before we call this one a wrap?
Nah, just get ready to plug your ears every time you hear Sea Island Mafia next week, because it'll be on every.
Sea Island Mafia will be half the field every year. Lots of guys who call that home down in Georgia. So, all right, we'll talk about the Sea Island Mafia next week. For now, we'll go ahead and call it a wrap for this week. Thanks to Steve, as always, for producing behind the scenes for us. Thanks to Noto for joining me. I'm Justin. Good luck in your contests, everybody. Stay warm out there as the snow and cold comes to much of the country. Good time to stay in and watch all the sports that are going on. Until next week, for Noto, for Steve, I'm Justin. Take care. We'll see you later.